This isn't just a story. It's a journey, one that'll stay with you long after the video ends. So if you've ever felt love, loss, betrayal, or hope, then stay with us. Because this story deserves to be heard from the very first second to the very last. If this video moves you, even for a moment, please give it a like. Leave a comment telling us which part hit you the hardest, and share it with someone who needs to feel something real today. And if you love stories that are raw, emotional, and unforgettable, then subscribe to the channel, because we don't just tell stories here. We bring them to life. It was just another Monday morning in Manhattan, the kind where the city buzzed louder than usual and everyone walked faster like they were chasing something they'd never catch. Inside the sleek glass building of Wexler Corporation, the air was colder than the early spring breeze outside. Claire Hamilton stood near the elevator on the 32nd floor, nervously adjusting the sleeves of her blazer. She wasn't usually this jittery, but today wasn't like other days. She hadn't slept all night. Her body felt heavy. Nausea came in waves, and deep inside her chest, something told her things were about to shift, and not in a good way. "Mornin', Claire." Sarah from HR greeted her with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Claire forced a polite nod and stepped into the elevator, heart pounding. She knew that look. HR smiles were never just smiles. The office was quiet when she stepped into the marketing department. Her desk, cluttered with coffee-stained memos, sketches for ad campaigns, and an old picture of her and her mom at Coney Island, suddenly looked unfamiliar, like it already didn't belong to her anymore. At 9:06 a.m. sharp, her office phone rang. "Claire, Mr. Sterling would like to see you," said the receptionist on the other end, her voice unusually formal. She didn't reply, just hung up, smoothed down her skirt, and walked to the CEO's floor with legs that didn't quite feel like hers. Liam Sterling was a legend in the business world, sharp, cold, and ruthless, the kind of man whose gaze could pin you to the wall, and whose silence said more than most people's words. He inherited his father's company at 30 and tripled its worth in 5 years. Everything about him was tailored, his suits, his life, and definitely his boundaries. Claire had only interacted with him a handful of times in the last 2 years. Always professional, always brief. But once, just once, things had crossed a line. That one night at the company gala still haunted her. She remembered the dim lights, the way the champagne had tasted sharper than usual, the rooftop breeze, and the way Liam had looked at her like she wasn't just another employee, but someone he couldn't ignore. That night wasn't supposed to happen. They never spoke about it again. Until now. She entered his office. He didn't stand, just stared at her from behind his massive glass desk, his eyes colder than she remembered. "Sit," he said simply. She sat. He slid a folder across the desk. Her heart sank. "Claire, this isn't easy," he began, though his tone was more corporate than compassionate. "Your recent performance has been inconsistent, missed deadlines, sloppy presentations, and multiple late arrivals." "I've been sick," she said quickly. "I've tried to keep up, but—" "We don't run this company on excuses," Liam interrupted. "You were a strong asset, but lately it's clear you're distracted. We need focus, precision, not whatever this is." There was a pause. Claire stared at the papers in front of her. Termination notice, final paycheck, severance agreement. She wanted to scream, to tell him everything, that the late arrivals were from morning nausea, that her mind wasn't on work because she'd spent nights crying, unsure whether to tell him the truth, that she wasn't just distracted, she was pregnant with his child, but she couldn't say it. Not like this. Not when he looked at her, like she was just a file on his desk. Disposable. So she nodded. I understand, she whispered, standing up. Her voice cracked slightly, but she didn't let herself cry. Not here. Not in front of him. He didn't respond. He didn't ask her if she needed help. Didn't ask her if she was okay. Just looked back down at his screen as if she had already vanished as she walked out of his office, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Claire felt a coldness she hadn't felt in years. But what Liam didn't know, what would change everything, was that before the sun would set that day, he'd get a phone call that would shatter that icy composure of his. Because Claire Hamilton was done keeping secrets, and the baby she was carrying was his. Claire stepped out of the Wexler building, the city swallowing her whole. Her hand instinctively touched her stomach, though there was nothing visible yet, just a tiny life growing inside her and 1,000 emotions clawing at her chest. She didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, she walked 2 blocks to a small park and sat on a bench tucked beneath a cherry blossom tree, just beginning to bloom. Spring had arrived, but to Claire, everything still felt like winter. Her phone buzzed. Claire? Hey, it's me. You all right? It was Marissa, her best friend and roommate. Claire hesitated, then whispered, He fired me. What? Are you kidding me? Did you tell him? She shook her head, even though Marissa couldn't see her. I couldn't. He looked at me like I was nothing, like I was already gone. I couldn't find the words. Marissa let out a breath. Claire, you can't keep this to yourself. You need support, and he deserves to know. Claire closed her eyes, fighting back tears. I don't want his pity, or some forced responsibility. I needed that job, Riss. I have nothing now. No savings, no health insurance, and I'm 8 weeks along. There was a silence on the other end. Then Marissa said quietly, then maybe he needs a wake-up call. Claire didn't respond, but deep down, she knew Marissa was right. Hours passed. She went home, curled up on the couch, and stared at the sonogram picture she'd tucked inside her purse. She'd gotten it just last week, planning to show it to Liam when she found the courage. But courage never came. That night, around 8:15 p.m., Claire finally picked up her phone and opened her contacts. Her finger hovered over his name, Liam Sterling. Her hands trembled as she hit call. It rang. Once. Twice. Sterling. His voice was sharp. Cold. She froze. Her voice caught in her throat. Hello, he repeated. It's Claire, she said, barely above a whisper. A pause. Then, Claire, I thought we'd said everything we needed to this morning. Of course he'd say that. Claire swallowed. I didn't get a chance to say everything. I need you to listen. She expected him to sigh, maybe hang up, but after a moment he said, Go on. Her fingers gripped the couch cushion. I'm pregnant. Silence. Pure, deafening silence. I found out a few weeks ago, she continued. I was trying to make sense of it, trying to figure out what to do, but I couldn't keep hiding it. Still, he said nothing. Claire's throat tightened. I'm not calling to ask for anything. Not money. Not help. I just thought you had the right to know. You didn't just fire your employee this morning. You fired the mother of your child. Then she hung up. She didn't wait for him to say anything. Didn't give him a chance to deny it. Or worse, say something cruel. She stared at the phone in her lap, chest heaving. The weight of the truth had finally left her lips, but in its place, a new kind of fear had settled in. Up in his penthouse apartment, overlooking the skyline, Liam Sterling stared at his phone like it had just spoken in a foreign language. He replayed the words in his mind. I'm pregnant. You fired the mother of your child. His mind raced back to the gala night. The rooftop, the taste of her lips, the way she trembled when he touched her. It had only happened once. Once. And yet, here they were. He loosened his tie, but it felt like the walls were tightening around him. This wasn't supposed to happen. He was precise, controlled, calculated, but Claire Hamilton had just shattered all of that with one phone call. For the first time in a long time, Liam didn't know what to do. Claire didn't sleep that night. She lay on the worn-out couch in their two-bedroom apartment, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun in slow, uneven circles. Every hour that passed with no response from Liam felt heavier than the last. Maybe he won't call. Maybe he doesn't care. She hadn't expected a miracle, but silence, it hurt more than she thought it would. By morning, her stomach churned with both nausea and dread. Marissa tried to convince her to eat something, but Claire barely managed a sip of tea. Then, just before noon, a sharp knock came at the door. Claire frowned. Marissa peeked through the peephole. Her jaw dropped. Oh, my God, it's him. Claire's heart stopped. Before she could react, the door opened. There he stood, Liam Sterling, in a charcoal suit, no tie, but still every inch the powerful man she'd known. Except today, his expression was different. Not cold, not angry, confused, strained. Even, dare she say, worried? Can we talk? He asked, his voice quieter than she'd ever heard it. Marissa disappeared into the other room, shooting Claire a wide-eyed look as she went. Claire stepped aside, folding her arms tightly. You found my address. I run a billion-dollar company. He replied. I find things. She almost rolled her eyes. Almost. Liam stepped inside, but didn't sit. He stood in the middle of the small living room, like he didn't know how to exist in a space that didn't have glass walls and a private espresso machine. He looked around. Photos on the wall. A crack near the ceiling. A faint scent of lavender and old wood. This wasn't his world. And yet, he had no choice but to face it now. I didn't know what to say last night. He started. Claire crossed her arms. You didn't say anything at all. I was in shock. She raised a brow. You? Shocked. I didn't think anything could shake Liam Sterling. He sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. You blindsided me. I didn't plan this, she snapped. I didn't ask to get pregnant. I didn't ask to be fired the same day I was going to tell you. Do you think this is easy for me? His jaw clenched. I never said it was. Silence fell again. Liam finally sat on the edge of the couch, shoulders stiff. How far along are you? 8 weeks. His brows lifted slightly. So it was the night of the gala? Claire nodded. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. I thought we both understood that night was a mistake. Her heart cracked a little. Maybe for you, she whispered. But for me, it became something more. And now it's not just about you or me. It's about the baby. He looked up, and for the first time, she saw it, fear. Real, raw, human fear in his eyes. I didn't grow up with the best example of a father, he muttered. My dad was cold, controlling. I swore I'd never be like him, but I don't know if I even know how to do this. Claire sat down slowly on the armchair across from him. I'm not asking you to know everything. I just wanted you to know. That's it. He looked at her, really looked at her. The woman he'd once seen as a fleeting mistake, now the mother of his child. I don't want to be like my father, he repeated. And if there's a chance I can be better, I want to try. Claire blinked. She hadn't expected that. I'm not perfect, Liam added, but I don't want to walk away from this. Her walls, built up brick by brick since yesterday, began to crack. Then you'd better mean it, she whispered, because this baby won't survive being treated like an afterthought. I do, he said firmly. I want to be there. For you. For the baby. For the first time since she made that phone call, Claire let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't the same man who fired her yesterday. 3 weeks later, Claire stood inside a modest clinic in downtown Brooklyn, her hands folded over her growing belly as she waited for the ultrasound technician to call her name. Things had changed faster than she'd expected. Liam hadn't disappeared. In fact, ever since that afternoon at her apartment, he'd shown up again and again, not with money or cold responsibility, but with questions, with genuine effort, with late-night calls just to ask how she was feeling or what she needed. He didn't always know what to say, but Claire could tell he was trying. He'd even shown up with a bag of ginger chews and crackers when the morning sickness hit hardest, awkwardly standing in her kitchen, like he didn't know what to do with his hands. Claire Hamilton, the nurse called. She looked up. Liam stepped in beside her before she could say anything. You sure you want to come in? She asked, her voice softer now. You don't have to. I want to, he said quickly. If you'll let me. She hesitated for a breath, then nodded. Inside the dimly lit exam room, Claire lay back as the technician squeezed cold gel onto her stomach and pressed the wand gently against her skin. Within seconds, the screen lit up with flickering movement. And there it was, tiny but unmistakably alive. Their baby. The heartbeat echoed in the room like a tiny drum, fast and strong. Claire turned her head and looked at Liam. He wasn't looking at her. He was staring at the screen, eyes locked, jaw tight, but not in his usual controlled way. He looked shaken. His breathing had changed. And then she saw it. His eyes glassy. He blinked quickly, trying to hide it, but it was too late. Tears. Liam Sterling, the man who'd built empires with a stare, was tearing up at the sight of his child for the first time. I didn't know, he whispered. I didn't think I'd feel this much. Claire reached for his hand without thinking. And this time, he didn't pull away. His fingers wrapped around hers like he needed the connection to steady himself. Later that evening, back in her apartment, they sat on the couch in silence. She held the printed sonogram photo in her lap. I want to do things right, Claire, he said, voice low, not out of obligation, out of choice, out of respect. For you, for this baby. She looked over at him. Doing it right doesn't mean fixing everything overnight. I know, but I want to be part of every appointment, every decision, whatever role you'll allow me to play. I'll be there. Claire hesitated, her heart balancing between fear and hope. I don't need a proposal or a fairy tale, she said. I just need stability, love, something real for this child. Liam nodded. Then let's build it. Slowly, honestly. And in that moment, something shifted between them. Not the passion of one unexpected night. Not the cold tension of a corporate relationship. But the fragile beginning of something new, something real. Months passed. Claire's bump grew. Liam moved her into a better apartment, close to the clinic, close to the parks she loved. He didn't try to take control. He asked. He listened. He started coming home earlier, took meetings remotely, even skipped a major business dinner just to hold Claire's hand when her ankles swelled, and she couldn't stop crying over a dog food commercial. And when the baby finally arrived, a little girl with Claire's smile and Liam's stormy gray eyes, he didn't just hold her like a CEO figuring out a problem. He held her like his whole world had just changed. Because it had. He'd once fired the woman he thought was just an employee. Now, he couldn't imagine a life without her. Or the little girl who called him daddy.